When the mind is distracted, and continues to be so, unless we do something about it, it will increase and even become chaotic and cause all kinds of psychological and emotional problems. Oftentimes when we are on the most, acceptable, or in psychology we use the term regulated, in a sense, reach the state of homeostasis or normalcy, if you will, we change the gauge often to match, to increase. So we make it more and more acceptable for us to be a little bit more agitated, a little bit. So that's why today's human being is far more agitated. You can pick any sample from any group in a modern society in the world. City dwelling people. And you notice there is agitation. Now, if there is agitation, that does not mean that it's temporary. The danger is that the agitated state has become normal. So now you just created a baseline. So it's constantly increasing. This is when stress levels become more and more accepted, adopted, adapted to. Meanwhile, something bigger is taking place. The person is unable to sleep at night. The person is unable to connect with others. The person's central nervous system is not functioning in a balanced way, meaning your immune system is affected. You have to come up with all these different things, as they call nowadays, biohacking, to figure out, to outsmart this or that event or occurrence or chronic episodes of intensification of the stress levels, where tension buildup is becoming tolerated. Meanwhile, at the same time, we are somehow wanting to attain deeper and deeper levels of peace, tranquility. It's like having a bowl of water or something, a stew or soup on the stovetop, and the fire is on. It's cooking, it's boiling, it's simmering. But we are trying our best to somehow impress upon, and change, and basically reduce the amount of bubbling that's going on when the boiling water has, actually started boiling, so it's reached 100 degrees Celsius. Well, how are we going to reduce the bubbling or the boiling or the intensity of heat in the bowl so long as the fire is still going on underneath it? This is what I'm trying to say. So to want to change, improve your well-being, while you do not change at least a few aspects of your life, will be like you expecting the bubbles to die down while the heat is still going on with the same intensity. It's as ridiculous as that. So some things have to change in your life. Of course, countless times we've talked about the importance of developing a moral structure in your life, reintroducing a morally sound, based on wisdom, type of a structure for you, which in Buddhism we call it sila, which starts by you taking the 5 precepts: not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in any sexual misconduct, where somebody's going to get hurt or you're going to regret it later on, for sure, once it's exposed, etc. Not to lie or speak falsehood, and not to engage in any kind of mind-altering, intoxicating intake of substances, whatever it is, for the sake of changing and feeling good, basically, to take something, a drug. Usually that's what we mean. So, how does one proceed from that? Sila on its own is not going to do it. That's why the Buddha did not just present us with sila. That's the first training. The second training, they go hand in hand, by the way. They don't happen in stages. First you have to fulfill this, perfect it, master it, and then you move on to the second. No, it doesn't work like that. So the training of the mind comes next. The training of the mind is crucial, for which reason the Buddha gave so many different techniques, so many different ways of tapping into the mind and unraveling its potential, deepening our sensitivity to the mind, so that when I say unravel, the bigger and bigger potentials of the mind reveal themselves as you are disciplining yourself through both sila and mental cultivation, which is, as I said, the second training, and that is training via the samadhi. This is where a lot of people can become stressed, in fact, because of meditation. Go figure. Because there's so many information out there, so much data on it, so many different variations of it, even within Buddhism. One teacher says this, another teacher says that, etc. And because of our proclivities to attachment and possessiveness and basically conceit and delusion, of course, we miss the whole point of meditation. As I said, the Buddha gave many techniques. Typically, it's represented as 40 different meditation techniques, kamatanas, but he gave more than that during the 45 years, depending on the disposition of the individual who approached him and asking for instruction, Bhikkhu or layperson. But of course, there are certain techniques that keep coming up, and depending on, again, the unique circumstances of the individual practitioner. So over the years, I've given many talks on practice. Prominently, it had been on metta. I still do, loving kindness, the Brahma Viharas. They're very powerful. But at the same time, it has to be conjoined with vipassana, because otherwise it doesn't go anywhere as far as awakening is concerned. Vipassana is the core, is the key that allows the mind to penetrate into phenomena, into understanding the shifty, changeable, insecure, impermanent nature of things, experiences, states of consciousness, etc., events in life, experiences of the six senses, etc. And also to see the suffering nature of it. And then the fact that they're all non-substantial. There is no core inside. They're just arising because of a series of causes and conditions. So vipassana is the thing that allows us to see that. Okay? Just to clarify. Again. I've also talked about the breath, the importance of the breath. So, given the question at hand, I will address a portion of it because I've already discussed this many times. I encourage people to listen to from the Sutta Exploration series, the Anapanasati, the Satipatthana suttas, 2 different suttas. And those are, especially the Anapanasati, which I'm going to simply take out some of the steps, which don't necessarily get to be exposed or are not followed often, or people don't even know about it, even though it's been mentioned so many places by so many teachers, of course the Buddha in the suttas. So this is something that I've already mentioned, I think, in the Anapanasati Sutta discourse from a few years back. But they're longer discourses that I gave. So for many people that would be too much. So what I would recommend then is to listen to this and to gain as much of it as possible, but then go back to the sutta itself, to listen to the sutta itself, or read it, etc. So, which aspect of it am I referring to? So, from the Anapanasati Sutta, we see the Buddha beautifully delineating the steps to be practiced. Usually, people will just say, observe the breath coming in and going out. So just stay right there at the nostrils, at that point of contact between the air and the area of your skin that's being contacted by the air, the flow of breath going in and out, in and out. So here, it's key to know that it's a training. So for many people, it will take some time to kind of connect with the breath, because you are constantly working against the obstacles, or what we call the hindrances, or nivarana in Pali, that come up. Distractions, physical sensations, pain, emotional triggers triggered by the mind, memories, sensations, etc., that come in to dislodge you from your focus on the breath. So to address that and to allow the mind to deepen and deepen and deepen gradually, progressively, the Buddha has delineated these 16 steps, which I'm not going to go over because it can be too much, and because I've already explained it before elsewhere, but I just want to take a chunk of those instructions. And specifically, I'm referring to the Citta nupassana, on looking at the quality of the mind, which is the third aspect. Okay? because the Satipatthana, just briefly, Satipatthana is broken down into 4 modes of mindfulness practice, bases of practice, establishing yourself. First is the body. Second are the feelings. Third is the mind, which is what we will be discussing now, because the question comes up, and I want to provide individuals with bite-sized information on this, because it's very important. And then lastly, there comes the Dhammanupassana. So I'm not going to discuss these other 3, just the Cittanupassana. So when you have allowed the mind, when you have secluded yourself, when you have turned off the heat of the stove, pulled away the bowl from the stovetop, and you're intentionally allowing yourself to sit and to be with the breath, slowly, you become more and more sensitive to the breath. This is key. Sensitive to the breath. You start noticing the tiny little nuances, the changes, the fluctuations. But remember, this is Cittanupassana. So you're using the breath to tap into the mind. So ultimately, I would like you to become sensitive to the mind. That's the key. So you can't get to be sensitive to the mind without first being sensitive to the body, in this case, the breath. That's why we're using the breath, because individuals ask, could you say a few words about the breath, Bhante? Because you've talked so much about other meditation techniques, especially the metta, loving kindness. Could you speak more on the breath? So that's why I'm doing this Q&A. But you have to give yourself some time with this. So you can't be rushing through it, at least in the beginning. Eventually it becomes, with habit, it becomes more and more natural for you to slide into this sensitivity of the mind state. Even while you're, changing your, tire of your car, cooking in the kitchen. Suddenly you drop into, you're noticing. It's not the noise outside that you're noticing. It's not the emotions that you're noticing. You're noticing the very quality of the mind that perceives these things. So as you notice, as you might have guessed, this is a deeper level of practice. That's why this is the 3rd quadrant, meaning the Cittanupassana of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Satipatthana practice rather. Now as you're sitting in this sensitivity mode of practice of the citta, the mind or the heart, I like to call it, eventually you start gladdening. You start pasambaya in Pali. You start relaxing more. It's like a tense muscle that you didn't know it was tense. All of a sudden you notice that you were, and all of a sudden it soothingly opens up by you letting go of the tension. If you've ever had a massage done, to give you, a mundane image, you might be mundane for some, but if you've ever had a massage and the person who's rubbing the arm or the shoulder says, you're holding too much tension here, loosen up, and they put their hand on that part of the body and say, they direct you, they vocally direct you. Okay, try to relax more, try to relax more, try to relax more. That's what you're doing with the mind here, okay? But you can't do that without first having been sensitive to the mind. So that's why this is the second stage. Sensitive to the mind, and then it opens up to the gladdening. So you're taking a part in, you're having a role to play in this process of relaxation of the mind. And then eventually, as the massage therapist mentioned, you suddenly become aware of that body part, how it feels to be relaxed. And this is very important. In the case of the body, you now know how it feels to be relaxed. But if you've never known how to have that body part be relaxed, how would you know that it is tense? You see what I mean? Because most of us are running around. This is what I was saying earlier. We've just accepted a level of tension as acceptable, as normal. And we're increasing it. Slowly, slowly the heat is rising, intensifying, and we're just becoming more and more tolerant of it. And that is not good. That is not good. People used to torture. I guess they still do in some parts of the world. They torture beings, human beings, by slowly, slowly pushing the person into more and more uncomfortable states. Initially it was very, very intolerable, but then eventually the body develops some type of or the mind develops some type of an immunity to it. But that does not mean that it is normal, ever. That's why sooner or later symptoms will manifest, as the case is now with the whole world. Depression, nervousness, anxiety levels off the charts. Chaos in people's hearts, minds, and society. All this comes from the mind that is not relaxed. It is craving, it is holding on to tension, and it is accepting the tension. That is the problem. So this is what you're doing with sensitive to the mind, and then moving into, it's another level deeper level of the sensitivity. That's where we moved into now with the second stage of gladdening and relaxing the mind. Okay? Now when the mind has relaxed and is relaxing sufficiently, and it's very important here for you not to be rushing, mind you, you're not rushing, you're not forcing any of it. That's why I said initially, you have to give yourself the time to sit. That's why sitting practice is key. For the whole practice to work. Then you can do the walking meditation, you can do just normal bringing mindfulness into your life. Those are wonderful, but without the sitting practice, at least initially, it won't work. I guarantee it. It will not work. You'll be telling yourself lie after lie that you're living a mindful life or a meditator. No. Because other areas of your life will demonstrate themselves as being incoherent to this whole practice, to this part of the practice. So, sensitive to the mind, gladdening and relaxing the mind. Then comes the third stage of collectedness. So you're collecting the mind. So you're developing more of a stability. This is what we call samadhi. Everything comes together. Everything comes into place. Just falls into place, settles down. There's absolutely no pushing the mind, no making the mind do something that it's not naturally unfolding into. You're simply there, but you're completely aware. You're simply there, but you're also completely aware. So nothing's happening without your awareness. So there's no trance. That's why the Buddha was very, very adamant about the fifth precept not being broken, meaning you cannot take substances to alter the state of mind, because then it's no longer in your control. A person who takes drugs cannot practice meditation. Forget about it. It won't work, because it's self-defeating. It won't allow you the insights. It's impossible to allow you the insights that will take you to Nibbana. So collectedness of the mind, samadhi, happens as the third stage developing. It continues to develop. So there's different levels of samadhi. Eventually, it becomes so powerful, it's so present, that even when you get up from your seat of meditating, you get up and do other things, you won't lose that samadhi. So it's no longer the result of you sitting still, controlling or suppressing the distracting obstructions or hindrances, and then closing your eyelids. And there not being a noisy environment around you. Perfect, ideal situation. Most people want that on a retreat, but really it doesn't take you to insights. It's very lazy. It's a very posh environment. Not much insights are going to happen there. Why do I say this? Because samadhi that you attain to or experience in that quiet, deep, with eyes shut state, if it's real samadhi, and you open your eyes and it disappears, it's saying one thing: it wasn't samadhi. It was some superficial level of concentration. That's it. But what here I'm suggesting for you to try with the anapanasati practice on this third level is to observe and allow the mind to become collected, so it attains to deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper states of samadhi. This is indispensable to the practice. You go beyond logic. You go beyond the senses. Because with samadhi, you will develop panya, if it is proper samadhi, if it's the correct type of samadhi, if it's not the result of suppression. And this kind of samadhi, you get up, you move, you go and change your tire, go do your gardening, buy your groceries, talk to people even. And it won't be at the same level of samadhi then, but you will still have the undertone of samadhi playing. Not because of memory, no. You will still be touching samadhi on a deep level, but not as deep as you would when you're sitting, of course, because there's distraction, obviously, around you. You're talking or you're moving your eyes. There's input coming in from the senses. Nevertheless, the mind is open for panya, for wisdom to take place. And you're aware of it. That's the thing. That's why so many arahants became arahants, because, well, not while sitting, by the way. By interacting with life, that's when they attained. That's when they attained. So this changes many people's concepts or interpretations about samadhi, right? So once you have this level, the third level, which is the collectedness of mind, the third aspect of citta-nupassana, then the mind is so ready, so primed, that you release it. There's a liberation. You're liberating the mind. But from what? From the confines of your ego, from the confines of me, myself, This is who I am. This is happening to me. These are my boundaries. These are my walls of selfhood type of a thing. You realize they're all fickle. They're all made up. They're not real. They're not real. So think of it as a bouquet of flowers that you're holding tightly between your fingers, squeezing it so that you can hold them in one place. Your hand is almost in a fist position, so it's in between those fingers and the thumb. And it's so tight, and it's a big bouquet, and it's in a vase. And you suddenly open your hand. What happens? It's like the flowers radiate, they move outward. When I used to make pasta as a layman, I would hold on to the pasta with both hands like that, squeezing my fingers and my thumbs, holding it, and I put it in the boiling pot or casserole, whatever it is. And then you pull your hands away, and all of a sudden the spaghetti, it just opens up, like radiates outward in 360. Those are the images that I just got to give you, a visual of it. Of course, they have nothing to do with the mind in a sense. When it's liberating, when it's being allowed, when it's being released outside the confines of a sense of me-ness, my feelings, my sensations, my thoughts, you realize it's ridiculous. You realize it's comical at that point. And this is really, sometimes people attain Nibbana because of this sudden shift in understanding. Remember, Nibbana, or the practice that the Buddha gave us, is all about understanding. It's not about us attaining some higher mystical states of spirituality or whatever that means, trance-like things, or you're just feeling more and more experiences. No. That's why people go and do drugs. They want to get new experiences. Rubbish, ultimately, when there's no understanding. So this is taking you straight into deeper levels of understanding. And this would be the fourth level of citta nupassana. But in a nutshell, if you're in the middle of a busy day and you're like, oh, okay, what was Bhante saying? What was it? Which part am I doing? Relax. That would be you applying all the steps that I mentioned. Relax the mind, because you need to be sensitive to relax it, right? You relax by becoming sensitive first, by being aware of, oh, there's tension in the mind. I'm pushing myself, I'm pushing my mind, I'm forcing something. Breathe. And then just observe the mind as it undergoes all these stages. How about that? That's important in your day-to-day life. And no matter what happens around you, you're fine, because you are with whatever's happening within you. And that makes all the difference in the world. And you will notice your growth really exponentially rise in this practice, and especially understanding of it. So there you go. Anapanasati in a nutshell. Focus on citta nupassana. Sukhi hota.